Keeps them out of transition. We're doing a great job managing the game right now.
Stops for three. Felt the defender and turned it over.
Different kind of relationship I had with Ime, and probably like my most favorite coach I've had.
I thought good things happened when I had it in my hands.
Philadelphia fans, I wanted to tell you that I'm surprised by this happening, but really I'm not. And I think as a result of this, the core of the Philadelphia 76ers and their future is very much in question. And it's really sad considering everything that the Boston Celtics had to overcome to begin with in order to win this series. So before we get to the content, make sure you drop, like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow. Now that we get all that out of the way, cue the intro. This is the closest we're ever going to get to being given free money. Joel Embiid just needs to score 1 point in Game 7. So here are my picks. I'm going to have Joel Embiid getting 1 point at minimum. And then I have Jaylen Brown with a combined 9.5 rebounds and assists. I'm putting in 25 to hopefully make 75. And I'll keep you guys posted on my Instagram story. And make sure you use my promo code microphone so they can match your initial deposit up to $100. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? There are times where a lot is on the line, and in this case, the Boston Celtics season was on the line, and you are the face of the Boston Celtics. Arguably, at least there's some questions about whether or not you truly are the face of the Boston Celtics, and your team is looking at you to answer the call. Prove why you deserve that Supermax contract when your contract expires. Show everyone why you were compared to Kobe Bryant coming out of the NBA draft. In the most pivotal game of the Boston Celtics season, in one of the best seasons in Jayson Tatum's career, he needed to turn it on to make sure that the Boston Celtics had a chance to force a Game 7 to potentially win at TD Garden. And how did he respond? Well, during the first half of this pivotal Game 6, Jayson Tatum was 0 for 10 and had 1 point. Despite this, the Boston Celtics still led by 7, which is insane to me. So you would think at halftime there'd be a pep talk given, right? There'd be something to light a fire under his. But no, that wouldn't happen. Jayson Tatum, through 3 quarters, 3 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, 1 for 13 from the field, 0 for 6 from 3. Truly a horrific time to play your worst basketball. And in the midst of one of the worst performances in Jayson Tatum's career, and one of the most pivotal games in Jayson Tatum's career, in the final 4 minutes and 14 seconds of Game 6, on the road, Jayson Tatum hit 4 3-pointers. He didn't give up, and he kept freaking shooting. And he forced a Game 7 in TD Garden. Jayson Tatum followed up that Game 6 performance with a Michael Jordan-esque Game 7 performance in TD Garden that really shows you that he truly is a player that you want to build around. I mean, players that play horrifically in the first 3 quarters of a pivotal game and then come out and perform the way he did in Game 6 and follow that with a statement Game 7 victory. That's before I even mention how many problems the Boston Celtics had throughout the regular season all up until this point. I mean, we got to give them their flowers. I'm a diehard Laker fan, and I have so much respect for what the Celtics overcame in order to win this Game 7. 2 years ago, following the Boston Celtics' exit from the NBA playoffs, there was one huge question looming over the heads of the entire organization, and that's whether or not Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum could coexist with one another. The Boston Celtics were undergoing a huge transition period at this point, and they were doing some pretty interesting things. One being Danny Ainge, longtime general manager, stepping down, and Brad Stevens, their head coach, being elevated to the front office. So that's not all they would do. That offseason, they would swing a huge trade in bringing back a familiar face that was essentially their glue guy. Al Horford was traded back to the Boston Celtics in exchange for Kemba Walker and the 16th overall pick in the 2021 NBA draft. And finally, the Boston Celtics decided to hire Ime Udoka as their new head coach for the 2022 season. The first half of the season got off to a bit of a rocky start, but the Boston Celtics were able to carve out an identity for themselves in the second half of the 2021 to 2022 season, being known for playing suffocating defense and complementing that suffocating defense with a prolific offense that played through their best players, Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown. The result was a trip to the NBA Finals where the Boston Celtics were actually favored to defeat the Golden State Warriors. Unfortunately, the Golden State Warriors experience paid off as they would inevitably win that NBA Finals series versus the Boston Celtics. But there's one thing that the Boston Celtics could look forward to, and that's the fact that their two best players, Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum, still haven't even hit their prime yet. They finally nailed their head coach. The front office transition to Brad Stevens was seamless and it paid off. Bringing back Al Horford was the right move, clearly, and all they had to do was bring in additional pieces to try to become stronger for a potential NBA Finals rematch. And to Brad Stevens' credit, Boston Celtics did just that by swinging a huge trade for Malcolm Brogdon and also using their mid-level exception to sign Danilo Gallinari. They brought back Sam Hauser, and it seemed like they were well on their way. There's only one problem. You remember that head coach that they clearly hit on? The one that led them all the way to the NBA Finals? The head coach that Jayson Tatum is on record saying that he was his favorite coach to play for ever?
You know, I can't take away the relationship that me and him had and the impact that he had on me in that one season. You know, I love Coach K, I love Brad, I love Joe, I love all those guys, but, you know, just a different kind of relationship I had with Ime, and, you know, probably like my most favorite coach I've had.
Well, there was a story that leaked or got to the hands of the Boston Celtics about reported and alleged infidelity between Ime Udoka and a Boston Celtics staffer. I don't want to go too into that story because that's its own rabbit hole, but my primary thoughts about that story is how the hell did this get out and why wasn't this resolved in-house? I don't really know, but the result of this was the Boston Celtics ended up suspending Ime Udoka indefinitely. Now, a lot of people are saying that Ime Udoka should have never been let go as a result of this, but to be honest, I feel like this is a situation that is so complicated and so complex that the resolution to it isn't as simple as you might think. We don't necessarily know who the staffer is, we don't know the significance of that staffer, and we don't know if firing that staffer and giving her a severance package would result in her coming out and saying something horrible about the Boston Celtics organization, which could tarnish their reputation. The Celtics' hands were tied. They clearly nailed their head coaching hiring of Ime Udoka, but it didn't seem like they could retain him any longer. They were forced to pivot at the worst possible time. This came out in late September, and the NBA season was set to start in under a month. So immediately, Ime Udoka was suspended, and Joe Mazzulla was plugged in. And the assumption was that the Boston Celtics clearly know what they're doing. Ime Udoka was just an assistant coach for the Boston Celtics underneath Brad Stevens, so Joe Mazzulla is an assistant coach under Ime Udoka, so elevating him should work out just as fine, right? Well, Boston Celtics did have a remarkable season, finishing second in the Eastern Conference and even boasting 6 more wins than they did under Ime Udoka. They ranked 4th overall in points per game and 5th overall in opposing points per game, plus 1st overall in net rating and 3rd in defensive rating and 2nd in offensive rating. Now, enough about the Boston Celtics. We need to talk about the Philadelphia 76ers. I feel a tremendous amount of empathy for this team because it clearly seems like they did everything right in the offseason leading up to the regular season in order to put themselves into a situation where they can make a push towards the NBA Finals. For once, everything was going right. Joel Embiid was healthy enough to play. Hell, he won an MVP. James Harden and Joel Embiid had a full offseason together to work things out. James Harden took a pay cut so the Philadelphia 76ers could bring in Daniel House and PJ Tucker. Tyrese Maxey is far exceeding the amount of money he's being paid, which, by the way, we need to discuss this as well. He is still on a rookie scale contract for this upcoming year, and what are the Philadelphia 76ers doing with that contract? Well, they're currently paying Tobias Harris over $37 million to play a little bit below that value. No offense to Tobias Harris. And I think here lies the biggest issue for the Philadelphia 76ers. Whenever you're paying almost $40 million for a player that is averaging 15 points, 5.7 rebounds, and 2.5 assists. Yeah, he is shooting 39% from three, but as a whole, Tobias Harris is a net negative for this team for the amount that you're paying him for. He's a good player. He has a positive offensive BPM. He has a positive VORP. It's not like he's a terrible player at all whatsoever. It's just that he is severely overpaid, and this is handicapping the Philadelphia 76ers from getting players that could really contribute towards winning a championship. So now there's a huge question about what the 76ers future is going to look like. I mean, at this point, what's going to happen with James Harden? There's a ton of rumors of James Harden potentially leaving the Philadelphia 76ers to play with the Houston Rockets. Joel Embiid is under contract, and of course, this is extremely heartbreaking considering the fact that they were up 3-2 against the Boston Celtics in Game 6 going back home. They had an opportunity to close this out, and they were really close before Jayson Tatum's outburst in that Game 6, which makes this all the more painful. So how do you improve this team at this point? And are the James Harden to the Houston Rockets rumors actually true? Well, the James Harden to the Rockets rumors we're going to save for the offseason. Personally, I think that's just something that James Harden's camp might be putting out there just so he could get more money. I think Harden is at that point in his career where he's content with his personal accolades. He's content with the amount of money he's made. He's seen what it's like to play on a team that's also a super team in the Brooklyn Nets. And I think in terms of where he is at this stage of his career, the Philadelphia 76ers probably make the most sense for him. And it seems like him and Daryl Morey and the front office of the Philadelphia 76ers are all on the same page in regards to his contract and what needs to be done to win a championship. Problem is there's a lot of fat that needs to be trimmed for the Philadelphia 76ers to get there. And that's before we even mention how abysmal Joel Embiid's and James Harden's performance has been in this pivotal Game 7. I mean, going into the fourth quarter, man, Joel Embiid had 13 points off of 4 of 16 shooting. James Harden had 9 points off of 3 of 9 shooting. And this is Game 7. This is win or go home. At a particular point, Boston was absolutely decimating the Philadelphia 76ers. They went a whole 6 minutes without scoring in the third quarter. It was horrible. The one thing that I want to see is when we wake up tomorrow, what's going to happen? What is going to happen to Doc Rivers? First things first. I mean, he's had more than enough chances with a remarkable core of players. And it seems like each and every time when he's had a team that is more than capable of at the very minimum making it to the NBA Finals, he's fallen short. Doc Rivers is notorious for blowing leads when he's up 3 games. I mean, this has been going back all the way to the earlier portion of his career. And once again, he did it again. So my question is, if the Phoenix Suns fired Monty Williams, which, by the way, we have a video on that. I highly recommend you check it out. It was our first video of 3 videos in the past 24 hours. We also have a John Morant video as well. If the Phoenix Suns fired Monty Williams, who took him to an NBA championship, who won Coach of the Year, which, by the way, Doc Rivers has a funny little commentary on the fact that Monty Williams won Coach of the Year, who also finished in 4th place and only got to experience Kevin Durant with this Phoenix Suns injured core for about 20 games, well, 19 if we're being exact. If he got fired, then what are the odds that Doc Rivers is still the head coach of the Philadelphia 76ers, despite James Harden taking a pay cut, despite Joel Embiid having an MVP season, despite the Philadelphia 76ers having some pretty good role players? The only issue I see on this team is Tobias Harris being overpaid. James Harden isn't the player that he once was, but he took a gigantic pay cut. So you can't really look at him and be upset at him for not being the same player that he once was. He's doing everything he can, and it's not like he's being overpaid at this point. You're getting James Harden as a steal. Tyrese Maxey is still on a rookie scale contract, so we could all agree Daryl Morey here is not the problem. Daryl Morey is putting out a good product and a good roster. The problem is the coaching and Tobias Harris, whose contract was inherited. So I'm really interested in seeing what's going to end up happening to the Philadelphia 76ers given everything that just went down. Given the fact that in a pivotal Game 7, the Philadelphia 76ers star players completely disappeared. Role players were missing every single shot that was wide open, by the way. James Harden was creating for his teammates, I will admit that. So how will the Philadelphia 76ers improve this team? How would you improve this team if you're the general manager of the 76ers? Could we potentially see Nick Nurse or Tyronn Lue potentially coaching this team next year? because Doc Rivers once again blew a huge lead when his team was favored to move on to the Eastern Conference Finals. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about all this. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike. I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.